My name's Sylvia. I'm happy and nervous to be here in front of you. I'm going to be talking about the importance of a strong foundation for us as human beings, and I'm going to also go into the foundation of the education system. So if we look at Bitcoin, because that's what we all know about, the foundation is extremely strong. That's what we like about it. It's based on decentralization, on freedom that makes it unchangeable, unbreakable, and it has proven itself for the past 14 years. So of course anything can happen, but for now we can see the foundation is extremely strong. And if we look at our lives, we need a strong foundation in many aspects. If we look at relationships, business, personal projects, health, education, we need a strong foundation. And the base of all of that, like what all these foundations depend on, is the foundation of us as a human being. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If we look at a tree, if we take it as an example, as an analogy, the tree's roots are the foundation. The bigger, the deeper they go into the ground, the stronger the foundation, and therefore the stronger the tree is. Any weather conditions can happen, humans can climb it, bugs can nibble on it, maybe even earthquakes can happen. The stronger the foundation, the more likely the tree is to not just to survive but to thrive. If we were to see our society as a tree, it could possibly look something like this. And in one word, I would call it distorted. And we have to actually step out of society to be able to see it as this, because if we're in it, we're caught up in it, and we cannot change a system from within the system. Therefore, if we look at it from outside and we were to pick human beings, which is, makes society, we would describe them as weak, greedy, selfish, abusive, manipulative, aggressive, at war with one another, at war with themselves, in their minds, thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm hopeless, all these thoughts that we have in our heads. Superficial, disconnected, and basically unhappy. And of course you can see people happy, but it's in our society, it's a temporary thing. And it always depends on something outside of us. It's a person that makes us happy, it's a job, it's the money that we get, it's what we can buy with the money. It's like, oh, once I get the car, I'm going to be happy. Oh, I have my house, now I'm happy. I have achieved this in my career, and now my parents are proud of me, and all these outside things that are like, give us a little high, and then we get a low, and then we're looking for the next fix. And in the worst case, it is, abusing drugs, and it's addictions to get this happiness and then get into this cycle of happiness and unhappiness. And the reason for this is that the foundation of our society is not based, like Bitcoin, on freedom and decentralization, but on control and manipulation. We can see that very clearly in the monetary system, in the schooling system, in relationships, and if you dig deeper, you can see it everywhere in society. So my question is it possible to change it? And I would like to believe yes, or maybe at least it's worth a try, and I'm trying. And the way to do it for me is to work on or to set a strong foundation for us as human beings, because it's the base of everything. What I've been doing for the past 7+ years, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter Lima, was just focus on being the best mother I could be. I was reading book after book after book about gentle parenting. It went into psychology, into then homeschooling. I went down that rabbit hole into unschooling, and how to raise my children like in a free way. I never wanted to, tell them what to do unless it's a matter of safety, life and death. And that's how I did it. And then just recently, a few months ago, I read the book, The Continuum Concept by Jean Liedloff. And it completely blew my mind. And all of these, 35 books that I read in the past 7 years, made much more sense, and it seemed that all of these books were based on the author's findings. And she went in the 60s, I believe, into the Venezuelan jungle to live with the tribes for several years. And what she found there is that the way the people live there, if you want to call it the natural way of living, how humans are supposed to live and grow up and live together and learn, because later we're going to go into the foundation of the education system, that these people had the strongest foundation she had ever seen. They were the happiest people. They were in tune with themselves, with one another. There was no war, no fighting, not many tears. And if you look at the way we bring up our children in society, and I know you might think either I don't have children or not yet, or I won't have any, or my children are grown-ups, but the thing is, all of you have been born and have been raised a certain way, and probably in this distorted society. So your foundation is probably not as strong as the people who live and were raised in this tribe. Their foundation is based on freedom and decentralization, like the Bitcoin Foundation. And therefore, I believe everybody can benefit from knowing about this. So when we look at the way people raise their children here, women usually go to hospital and then they're not in charge. It's the nurses, it's the doctors that decide usually when the babies come out. Either like, okay, let's do cesarean, and then the baby's out and they take it away from the mother to wash it, to check it up, to, I don't know, put some nappies on and clothes. And then when they decide it's the right moment, they bring it back to the mother. So you can see it's not based on freedom or decentralization. And if you put yourself in the baby's perspective, it's been in the womb for 9 months. All it knows is the mother and some voices from outside, from other family members. It's warm and dark and wet and quiet in there. And then when it comes out, it's the opposite. It's bright and noisy and cold and just the opposite. And when it's taken away from the only person the baby knows, you can imagine that that's traumatic, and it creates fear, or the baby would feel fear. And if this disconnection from the mother happens too often, then every time it happens, there's a disconnect, it creates an insecurity within the human being, and it's carried all through life unless the person looks at it and heals it. How the people raise their children, like the natural way, the old way, how our ancestors have been raised many thousands of years ago, is the opposite. They give the babies, and then later the kids, everything they need. And I mean actual needs. I don't mean toys and screens and gadgets. The basic needs of a human being. It's because we as humans have, like, if you want to see it as us as animals, us instinctually have certain expectations, and they are the same as when we're in the womb, as being with the primary caretaker until they are ready, until they decide it's the next step. I can crawl now, I can walk now, I can explore now. And that is the human being decentralized. It's not about the mother. In those tribes, the mother is present, or the people are present, but they're not constantly doing things for the kid. It's all the kid deciding for himself, okay, I need my mother now. Okay, now I'm ready to go a bit further. I'm ready to try this and try that. And this way it continues until the child is an adult. And they live in a very harmonious and happy way with one another. Very different to how we live, most of us. The foundation for us is kind of set, and I'm not going to go deep into what we can do for ourselves, but it's all about finding and healing those childhood wounds, because they're still in there, they're still running the show. Whenever you feel you're getting triggered, like in an irrational emotion, like it's not a lion standing in front of you, it's not someone pointing a gun at you. If you feel fear because of something that might happen in the future, that's irrational, and that is because of you not having received this love and nurture and the these expectations that you had as a baby when it was the time. As I said, I'm not going to go into what you can do. Some people might not even be interested in this, but just becoming aware of this, that when you're sad or angry or fearful, just seeing that it's really the inner child that is screaming, because back then there was a disconnect. Then that's the first step, okay? And then there's other ways to heal your inner child. Now I've gone into the kids growing up in a free and decentralized manner, which leads me to the foundation of the education system. Our education system is based on manipulation and control. Kids go to school from 6 years onwards. Everyone has to learn the same things at the same time. They have their standards being set, they're being tested and judged and compared. There's a lot of competition. Most children don't enjoy school. Most people don't enjoy being forced or coerced to doing something. And of course, it's not based on freedom and decentralization. And if a child is raised in our society, even the most gentle way, they're still gonna be, it's not gonna be like the tribes in South America. But if at the age of 6, the child goes into an education system that is based, like Bitcoin, on freedom and decentralization, it will make a world of a difference, because the child is then at least a few hours of the day free to choose what to learn and how, what to put his time in, which is very important, which is what we all do after we've finished school. And if the child goes to the current system, which is based on manipulation and control, it will be prepared and put into this distorted tree that I showed you earlier, to go to all these hamster wheels of happiness, unhappiness, achievement and failure, love and hate, and all these things. And then either they spend the rest of their life this way, or at some point they become aware of it, that they're living the fiat life, that they're living in a hamster wheel or in a rat race. And then it's a lot of work to undo all this conditioning that they have received. Yeah, and with the education system that is based on freedom and decentralization, that's what I'm working on. My project is called A Place to Be, Families Flourishing in Freedom. And if you want to put it in some sort of category, I would call it a world schooling hub, because it's for families whose kids don't go to school, who want, it will probably mainly be Bitcoiners, because they understand the freedom aspect of this and the importance of children, running their own lives, because the only way to prepare, the best way to prepare children to be a decentralized adult is just starting then and there, as a little baby, as a toddler, following the cues and giving the freedom, doing it without punishment or reward. Just if you let kids be, they learn everything they need for their lives. And of course, every child will learn how to write and read and calculate, because it's part of our lives. Most people think if kids don't go to school, or if they're not sent to school, then they're not going to learn all these things, and they're going to fall back, and they're not going to have a good career, not going to earn money. But actually, from the day we're born until we're sent to school, all of us have learned everything that we know how to do without any schools or lessons, like crawling, grabbing, speaking, different types of languages. There was no lesson needed from the parents or any type of schooling. And it continues this way. It's not like at 6 years old everybody gets stupid and then they need to be spoon-fed information. And if you continue this way and give the children this freedom and the right environment and support when they ask for it, then they can really be fulfilled and happy people who follow their passions, who do things because they love them, do things because they have this intrinsic motivation, not because something outside of them motivates them. not to get the car or the job or the girl or the house, you know, and at a place to be. What I'm working on is having a big piece of land, having lodging. I would love to have some yurts. We will live there and have some other families living there. We will have lodging for traveling families who come and stay for a few months, and there'll be a big learning environment. We'll have the basics of many different types of areas of interest, like science and something more creative. We'll have animals, we'll have a co-working space for parents, we'll have a library and computer room, you know, just a bit of everything, and we'll come together. And as with Bitcoin, I will make sure that there is a very solid foundation based on freedom and decentralization. No one will ever be coerced or pressured or manipulated into learning or doing something they don't want to learn or do. And that's the most important thing, because the world changes, but and the kids will change. They will change their clothes and the way they speak, and their interests will change. But when the foundations are strong, then they can do anything and they will flourish in that environment. So that is the project, and yeah, if you have any questions, I'm open to them now.